Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Finally, another event from HGN's initiative, Building Sense, Creating Comfort and Cutting Carbon. Admit Dave Faulkner. So it's been a while since our last event, bit of a gap, but we really have been busy, we promise. Now, you may know that our main focus is on low carbon building retrofit. Yet meanwhile, as we strive towards our super insulated low carbon lifestyles, we do need to keep warm in winter. So where does heating with wood come into this? I'm speaking to you from a house that's insulated partly with wood fibre, so that's good, heated by wood pellets and has a wood burner for when it's extra cold or the electricity goes off. And it's lovely and cosy, but there's no fire without smoke, as they nearly say, which has some of us concerned about getting it right. Fortunately, excuse me, I'll just let some more people in. Fortunately, we're joined this evening by Mike Harvey, who represents two organisations, HETAS, the not-for-profit Solid Fuel and Wood Safety and Standards Organisation, and Woodsure, which is the UK's only wood fuel certification scheme. So welcome, Mike. And yeah, start off by telling us a bit about your roles with HETAS and Woodsure, if you would.
Hi, everyone. Yes, thanks for joining us this evening. It's great to be invited to be able to present something to you guys. Right, myself, blimey. I've been in the heating industry for too many years now, ever since I was sort of 15, 16 years old. As a plumbing and heating engineer, grown up with wood burning appliances and solid fuel. And after 28 years as a sole trader, plumbing and heating engineer, the knee started to go, so I started teaching apprentices and got some teaching qualifications. I did that for 6 years, and then in 2013 I came across the HETAS. Having been in the heating industry all my life, I didn't think there'd be that much to learn about burning wood and fires in chimneys, but it was a very steep learning curve. So and it was yeah, it's been great for the last sort of 8 years now. Initially joined HETAS as inspections and complaints manager, then came on to develop the technical helpline as well, and then in 2015 joined the training arm as training manager, and just basically getting involved with different areas of the training landscape, with awarding organisations, working with Department for Education, etc., etc. And now we've got solid fuel and biomass embedded back into the apprenticeship framework after it was taken out in 1990 and replaced with oil and gas. So it's kind of come full circle. And I'm very conscious that, you know, those within the room, you've probably been burning wood for a number of years, or, you know, you may have existing appliances that you're using. So I don't want to teach anybody to suck eggs, so to speak. But there have been some changes within the legislation, and some innovative thinking around appliance design and the fuels that we are burning, and it's all sort of as a strategic aim to meet government and industry aspirations in cleaning up the air. So yeah, so that's a bit about me, really. So you know, I've been with HETAS for quite a while, and so, you know, listening to a lot of things going on in the industry, and hoping to, you know, in my delivery this evening, probably pick up something from you guys as well, that we can move forward with. Yeah, that's me. I've got a slideshow to share with you guys throughout this evening, and but I think Jackie's got something that she wants to sort of forward as by means of a poll. I do,
Mike, and I've got a beautiful poll. I've got a whole lot of questions to ask you all, and we just went through it, and now it won't let me access it. So there we are, falling at the first hurdle. But what I will do by means of housekeeping is just let everybody know that session's being recorded. So just please be aware of that. And we will be taking questions. So if you've got questions at this stage, please, or at any stage, please put them in the chat. And Mike, his colleague Serena, who's showing up as HETAS Limited, the logo, and probably I will be scanning those, but in particular Serena and Mike will then be selecting questions. So let's try, in place of my glorious poll, let's just try, I'll have one more go. Nah, it won't do it. Let's just do a bit of a show of hands. So is there anybody here who whose main thing is, help, I want to use my wood burner, but it just, I can't work it and a load of smoke keeps coming out? Is anyone in that category? Give us a wave if you are. No.
Oh, promising.
This was all, that's good, isn't it? That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
It was all supposed to be anonymous. But is there anybody here who is currently on oil or LPG or even mains gas and is thinking that maybe it's an environmentally friendly thing to switch to, or a cost friendly thing to switch to wood heating as an alternative? Give us a wave if that's you.
I think, did Sue Egan put her hand up then? I saw.
I don't know.
Sue?
Yeah.
I think I saw a hand up there.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, I'm renting, so I would like to switch from oil, but I've got no control over it, so it's frustrating because no oil's terrible. But yeah, so that's why I put my hand down when there was the second part of the thing. Would you like to change it?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Good. Anyway, look, I don't think that oh, we've got Maria Duggan is
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, has a hand up.
Yeah, Jackie, I just want to say, so far I found myself sort of in between categories in both your questions, in that sometimes my wood burner pours out smoke and sometimes it doesn't. And I have both oil and wood in my house. So, yeah, and yeah, so I'll shut up about that.
No, that's fine. And we will be able to address some of this stuff sort of within the slides, and then we can sort of, if we haven't answered any of your burning questions, pardon the pun, by the end of the evening, then we can take more questions on it. And,
there we are.
Give some more time.
Great. Well, look, that was my technical hitch. So please, everybody, if you're not muted, please mute yourself. In case, as I always say, your cuckoo clock goes off, and we'll hand it over to Mike. Thanks very much, Mike.
Thanks, Jackie. I'll look at sharing my screen now, and hopefully there won't be any technical hiccups, but you can never tell. Okay. Okay. Give me a shout if you can't see that. You should be able to see that. Okay, so as I said, there's enough about me, but yeah, my name's Mike Harvey and I'm HETAS and Woodsure Training Manager. So just a few words on this slide here. So HETAS and Woodsure support cleaner and safer choices for the use of biomass and other solid fuels, appliances and associated technologies. As a non-for-profit organisation, we pride ourselves on investing surplus funds into business areas that directly contribute to safely reducing particulate carbon emissions for the benefit of the people and the environment. Achieved by working with government, industry experts and innovators, providing expert advice, training and clear evidence-based information. We will mobilise change to increase the use of cleaner fuels and more efficient appliances to improve air quality and public health, utilising our role as a trusted expert advisor to government to help improve associated legislation. We will set the benchmark for best practice in our industry through the provision of the Competent Person Scheme and the industry-leading training to increase the safe and environmentally responsible use of biomass and other solid fuels, appliances and associated technologies. So wood energy. So it's both sustainable when derived from conscientiously managed woodland situations, and low carbon with new tree growth absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere, equivalent to that used when burning wood fuel. It's a virtuous cycle that can actually benefit the health and future of UK woodland. Now it's a nice statement to be able to use, but within that we have to take into account where things are coming from, how sustainable is it. Locally sourced, then yeah, fantastic. It is very sustainable. But if we are importing it from the continent or somewhere else, then it can be questionable. Just bear that in mind for a while. So, clarity. There has been some concern over the past couple of years about the fact that wood burners were going to be banned. There was a lot of stuff going on in the press a few years ago now. But for clarity, wood burning stoves are not going to be banned. You're still able to use your old appliance. New regulations mean that on replacement or on new installations, the stoves available will be designed to be more efficient, clean burning. So Woodsure certified fuel types. So different types of fuel. And Woodsure, who you'll be hearing a lot about throughout this presentation. So Woodsure assess and certify the 5 most common types of wood fuel, each with different attributes and qualities that provide a flexible range of storage and use options appropriate to differing needs. Jackie, I asked the question as to who's using pellets or wood or any other types of fuel, and I suspect that the majority of people on this call in this meeting are more than often using logs, just basic logs as wood fuel. Pellet is a kind of very niche. If you've got a pellet boiler or a biomass boiler, then fantastic. But the majority of people are using split logs. Some using briquettes, and what you see there as well is a bit of what we call hogwood and wood chip. But neither hogwood or wood chip are used in domestic stoves. So just a bit of a closer look at those fuels. So firewood, so hard and soft wood, defined by log length, diameter and moisture content. Kiln dried or naturally seasoned to 20% of moisture content or less. So Woodsure also runs the ready to burn scheme for firewood and briquettes. Pellets, wood only. So this is a compressed biofuel made from pulverized biomass, usually in a cylindrical form and random length, typically 5 to 30 millimeters. And they're used, as I say, in pellet appliances, either dry, what we call dry, so room heaters, or pellets boilers. They are becoming increasingly popular, but nowhere near as popular as wood burning stoves. And those are also used in biomass boilers for larger installations. Briquettes. So briquettes, wood only, so solid biofuel formed as cubes or into cylindrical lengths, produced by compressing pulverized biomass. You've got wood chip there. So wood chipped woody biomass in the form of pieces with a defined particle size produced by chopping with sharp mechanical cutters. And these are usually used in industrial and commercial applications. And then hog fuel, also known as shred. And that's chipped woody biomass in the form of pieces with a defined particle size produced by a machine with a blunt hammer action. And again, more so with industrial and commercial applications. So with all this fuel and with all the burning that's going on, there has been a lot in the news about particulate matter and the aspirations across the whole, zero carbon and things like that, within introducing sort of cleaner regulations in the pursuit of cleaner air. So PM, what is PM? And we'll go on to that shortly. So regulations are seeking to reduce emissions of particulate matter, specifically PM 2.5 from the UK. A DEFRA survey initially attributes as much as 38% to domestic wood and coal burning. PM 2.5 has a direct link to health impacts. Contribution of wood burning in urban areas is significant. Reducing population exposure is key to reducing health impacts, and the UK ambition to reduce below World Health Organization guidelines concentration. So particulate matter. So just imagine, so PM 2.5, so what you see in front of you here, this diagram, this is a human hair. You see a fine grain of beach sand here. The blue here is dust, pollen or mold, etc. And PM 2.5, this one here, is actually, in comparison to the dust, pollen, mold, is sat there. So when we look at PM 10, inhalable particles with diameters that are generally 10 micrometers and smaller, and PM 2.5, so fine inhalable particles with diameters that are generally 2.5 micrometers and smaller. And there you see how small is 2.5 micrometers. So thinking about that single hair from your head, the average human hair is about 70 micrometers in diameter, making it 30 times larger than the largest fine particle. So when you've been here, or if you have heard about PM, particulate matter, PM 2.5, that's to try and put it in context for you. Now let's look at this 38% figure. And this is something that I use quite regularly, this slide quite regularly when I'm talking about this sort of stuff, is the DEFRA attributed 38% of domestic burning associated emission sources to wood burning. And but when we take into account what makes up that 38%, this schematic here, the domestic burning covers a lot more than stoves and fireplaces. So you've got to take into account things like mobile applications, stationary applications, cooking appliances, bonfires, incinerators, lighting, barbecues and pizza ovens, chimneys and fire pits. And I just imagine all of you invariably can sort of at any time, especially in the Herefordshire area, look outside your window and see a bonfire burning somewhere, some garden rubbish, something like that. So the 38% that had or has been attributed to domestic burning, in which sort of fireplaces and stoves and boilers has been lumped in with, that figure does need to be sort of delved into, and we need to look at that more in depth to determine the exact figure that sort of fireplaces and stoves comes in at. Admittedly, yeah, there is stoves and fireplaces do emit when not used correctly, and they'll emit products of combustion that aren't suitable and do compound and the situation and the problem. But it is something that needs to be looked at accordingly. So this is a slide that I like to use because when we look at wood and what it is, and it's a very, very primeval source of heating and fuel, and one of the main things that we found is that educating the end user is key, absolute key, in ensuring that smoke and products of combustion are actually what they should be. And this wood pile here, you could be led to thinking that isn't as it should be. And what we promote is something far more akin to this, in how to store your firewood and season it appropriately to be used on an appliance. So the differences between wet, what we deem as wet wood, so anything above sort of 20%, we would deem, and Woodsure would deem as unsuitable for burning on a wood stove. And what I've got here is a short video that just basically explains that, and it's more of a visual. And so I'm gonna play this for you now. I'm gonna stay quiet for a bit, and I'll let you watch this, and you can come to your own conclusions to some degree.
Hi, my name's Steve from Elkham Fire and Wood. I'm here today with the guys from Woodsure, nice new shirt, to talk about firewood and to talk about the new ready to burn firewood standard. Buying logs for your wood burner can be a really confusing and frustrating business. How do you know that the logs you're buying are properly dried or seasoned, as it's called? And why is that important anyway? What we're going to do today is show you just how important that is, and also make sure you knew about the new wood fuel quality standard, simply called Ready to Burn. Okay, so here we go. The air controls on this stove are very easy to use. You've got a single integrated air control, and all I'm doing is making sure that it's fully open, so we've got lots of air coming in to get the fire started. Right, so first thing is light the fire lighter. Now I'm using some dry softwood kindling to build a nice tower around this to get the fire started. And the important thing here is lots of air getting at the flame so the fire starts. Right, that's the softwood kindling, hardwood kindling on as well, and let's get that going. We'll give that a couple of minutes, get some nice hot embers. Okay, so here we are. It's about 10 minutes later. The flames have died down. We're just about in the optimum burn temperature range for the flue. So I'm going to load up some of the dry wood. So a nice cool touch handle. Get the door out of the way. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so it's now 5 minutes since I put the logs on. They've caught nicely, temperature's rising gradually. We're getting readings about 160 degrees centigrade on the front of the stove. A couple of things to point out. You'll see the glass on the stove is beautifully clear, no blackening up at all. The temperature of the stove is spot on. We're practically in the middle of the optimum burn zone. We've maintained all of that with just a little bit of air going in, working really well. Right, so now we're going to try it with the unseasoned wood. So the logs we were using before were very dry, about 14% moisture content. This is unseasoned logs, same species of wood. The only difference is the moisture content. These are about 42%. So same as last time, I'm going to get some kindling going, get a good bed of embers, and then we'll see what happens. So here we are. The kindling's got a nice bed of embers for us. So I'm now going to put on the unseasoned logs, and let's see what happens. I'm going to keep the air vents wide open. Gives us the best chance of getting this going. And these are the logs with about 42% moisture content. So here we are a few minutes later. We've still got this one piece of kindling, a nice dry kindling that's burning away. but nothing still appears to be happening with the logs. And what we can see is we're starting to get some soot and build up and some blackening of the glass. Yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, so we're about 10 minutes in now since we put the logs on, and not a lot happening. The temperature of the flue is starting to go down from the temperature it had reached at the end of the kindling burning. All of the kindling is just about burnt through, no sign of the logs catching fire. What we are seeing is some quite significant soot build up and blackening of the glass.
Okay, guys. Well, that was pretty self-explanatory, I think, and I hope to think that those of you on the call that have had wood burners for a while will already know about that, and be able to identify whether wood is too wet, or know yourselves as to how to determine whether wood is dry enough. I mean, just to take you back to that wood pile that you saw a few slides ago, that is actually my father's wood pile, and he's been burning wood ever since I can remember, and he burns an open fire with wood that's from that wood pile on a daily basis. But what he does, he takes it in, he starts seasoning that at one end, and when it gets to the other end of that pile, he knows it's ready to burn, I suppose. And he's been told by sweeps on a regular basis that he's got the best soot in the street. So he's always reminded me of that when I try and educate him on this sort of stuff. So it's I'd like to think that there are many of you on this call that are able to determine that your fuel is ready to burn. However, if you need some sort of assistance with that, and what we are sort of educating end users with, because there is a generation that really doesn't know as much as the previous generations as to how to burn wood and operate the stoves. So this one here, this is basically ensure fuel is well seasoned and dry. Use a moisture meter. And I don't know whether any of you have got moisture meters, but what I'm going to do now is just give you a brief demonstration using this YouTube clip that we put together, and just take a look at this. I like the shot of the moisture meter there, Jackie. That's good. That's good to
Yes,
see.
got it here. Mind you,
If anybody else has got one, let's see a raising of hands or a raising of moisture meters. That would be great.
Here we are. I've never been 100% sure where to shove it in, to be honest.
Yeah, if you get your split log and I mean, invariably the majority of the logs you're burning, I suspect, are already split. So if you could split it again, or you can just put it across the grain as it said in that video. So I don't know if now will be a good time to just have a look at the chat. I see some questions or see some chat. It's I think there are 6 in there at the moment. If I have a look and see, where are we? Okay, so
it's just the one question. Can you use the meter on the end of the logs?
You could do, but I don't think that that isn't what we'd sort of be saying for you to do. To get the best reading, you'd be looking across the center of the log, maybe splitting it again, because what you can find is if you've got a log that has been sort of in storage for quite a while, it could take on moisture, whether it be the extent to bump it up so as it's too wet to be questionable. What you can do is split that log again and then measure the moisture as sort of identified in that video across the grain, with the pins across the grain. So press those pins in across the grain on a split log and you'll be able to get a reading there. Okay, I close that chat off for now. Okay, so appliance types. So I think we've already sort of determined that the majority of people on the call have got wood burning stoves. If you have got a pellet appliance, please shout. I know, Jackie, you've got a pellet appliance, haven't you? So there are a wide variety.
Boiler.
Yeah, pellet boiler, isn't it? Yeah. So there are a wide variety of appliances available. Recent research confirms that a new, efficient, eco-design stove produces around 80% less emissions than an old open fireplace. So types of appliance. So we've got the open fire, we've got pellet stoves, we've got freestanding open fronted inset fire with or without convection. We've got closed inset fire with or without convection. Wood burning or multi-fuel stoves, continuous or intermittent. A dry stove with boiler solid fuel. Cookers, solid fuel boiler. Biomass appliances. Slow heat release stoves, so a heat store. Very popular in the over on the continent, in Switzerland, etc. So when we look at new appliances, so there's some research done in relation to this, and basically what you've got is PM 2.5 emissions factor here along the edge. When you look at a traditional stove with no control, you can see how high the PM 2.5 could reach there. An improved stove, so even with an improved stove with appropriate fuel, you're reducing that figure by 63%. That's just on an improved stove. On a new stove, reduce that figure by up to 80%. Now, a pellet stove, 95% reduction. And a new stove with ESP, which is basically electrostatic precipitating, that captures the particles, up to 95.7%. And then a pellet stove with ESP, reduce that to virtually nothing, which is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So as an industry, in support of the aspirations for clean air and strategies surrounding that and the environmental bill, lots of stuff going on there. there has been some confusion about sort of exempt appliances and eco design and things like that. So just to provide a bit of clarity, really, an exempt appliance. So you will have heard about DEFRA exemption and DEFRA exempt appliances. So exempt appliances have been tested to confirm they are capable of burning unauthorized fuels whilst only emitting minimal amounts of smoke emission into the atmosphere. Now, unauthorized fuels actually is wood. Wood is an unauthorized fuel. Okay. So basically, when you think about wood burning, just think of wood as an unauthorized fuel, and it has to be less than 20% moisture content. So exempt appliances have been tested to confirm they are capable of burning unauthorized fuels whilst emitting minimal amounts of smoke into the atmosphere. Eco-design appliances may meet the criteria for exempt appliances. However, confirmation may be found on the list of exempt appliances and fuels available at that website address there. So there's a lot of products on the market now that are, eco-design ready. But just be wary if you are replacing, an old appliance with an eco-design appliance. Just be wary that you go for one that is also exempt. Okay, so look out for that. And when we look at smoke control areas, so in a smoke control area, a solid fuel heating appliance must be either an exempt appliance using only specified fuel in the appliance instructions. So that could be DEFRA exempt appliance using wood, or C, exempt when burning on the DEFRA website. Multi-fuel stoves can also burn authorized smokeless fuels. Now, an authorized smokeless fuel could be something like anthracite or something that's been produced as an authorized smokeless fuel. And we'll go into that. Or using an authorized smokeless fuel. Authorized fuel may be burned on any appliance. So wood fuels, what are wood fuels? So, okay, wood fuels intended for burning and use within a domestic premises in England will be tested and certified under the Wood Fuel Ready to Burn scheme for moisture, including briquette fuel. This is administered by Woodsure Limited. Always look for the Ready to Burn logo on packaging, as you can see here. The company name and certificate number should be clearly displayed and can be cross-referenced with the Woodsure website. So what you've got here is the Ready to Burn logo, the company, and then the certificate number there. And you'll see this now more and more in wood that's picked up from garage forecourts, or is available in Tesco's, Waitrose, and many other supermarkets. And a lot of the major suppliers have now come on board to the Ready to Burn scheme. And it is being very well supported and helping to combat the matter. Now, manufactured solid fuels, these are defined as a blend of more than one ingredient which are bound together to create a solid fuel, normally a briquette or oval. Manufactured solid fuel will be tested and certified under the the MSF Ready to Burn scheme administered by HETAS. Always look for the Ready to Burn logo on packaging. So the company name and certificate number should be clearly displayed and can be referenced with the HETAS website. So some of the appliances, multi-fuel appliances that can burn wood or manufactured solid fuels. As we see the industry sort of progressing more, we are seeing that the innovation and everything is leading to more wood burning appliances. So we are finding that solid fuel, manufactured solid fuel, isn't as popular as wood burning. Unsuitable fuel, not only harmful emissions. Okay, and sadly, this is something we do see, and you know, it's seen regularly, and why we're so keen to educate the consumer, and you know, that goes sort of, the education comes from us directly, but also from the installers that are registered with HETAS as a competent purchase scheme, the chimney sweeps, the suppliers, the wood fuel suppliers. So not only a result of the smoke there, the poor fuel choice, not only a result is it you've got the smoke, but also you've got things like this happening. Poor fuel, poor condition. These are actually the photos that have been sent in to us by chimney sweeps. So you've got things like lack of service and maintenance that can cause this, poor fuel choice, but also something that used to be very common years ago is something called slumbering, which basically keeping the fire in overnight, which was common practice with a lot of the old coal appliances and things like that. But a lot of the new appliances are not designed to be slumbered with the fire kept in overnight. So it's closing the air ports down and this, that, and the other, the air controls on the appliance. They're not designed for that. So what you can have, this lack of maintenance, slumbering, and poor fuel choice can lead to this scenario. But what else can it lead to? Carbon monoxide. So what we've got is 3 short videos here I want you to take a look at, because these are very, very important and are a consequence of poor fuel choice, lack of service and maintenance, and slumbering. So I'll just lead you into these now.
Carbon monoxide is a poisonous gas with no colour, taste, or scent. It can be given off by faulty appliances including gas, oil, and solid fuel. The law in England and Wales states that new or replacement solid fuel installations in your home must also have a carbon monoxide alarm fitted. Use a HETAS registered installer to select and fit a compliant carbon monoxide alarm model. You can discuss a location for it to be fitted to make sure its positioning complies with building standards. Take a note of the carbon monoxide alarm's expiry date. Your alarm will need to be replaced before this time. Your alarm will also need to be replaced a certain number of years after its installation. See the manufacturer's instructions. Test your carbon monoxide alarm regularly. HETAS support the Test It Tuesday scheme. For more detailed information on where your carbon monoxide alarm can be placed, please see our second carbon monoxide safety advice video. Our previous video explained how the law in England and Wales requires new or replacement solid fuel installations in your home to have a carbon monoxide alarm fitted. But where can an alarm be fitted to comply with building regulations? Your installer can help you select a compliant alarm model suitable for mounting either on the ceiling or on a wall. Carbon monoxide alarms must be in a permanent fixed position and located in the same room as the appliance. Ceiling mounted alarms should be placed at least 300 millimetres away from any wall and between 1 to 3 metres horizontally from the appliance, anywhere in the blue area. Wall-mounted alarms should be between 1 to 3 metres horizontally from the appliance and at least 150 millimetres away from the ceiling. If there is a need to install it on a wall with doors or windows, then the alarm must be located as high above these as possible, but still at least 150 millimetres from the ceiling. If the alarm needs to be installed in a room with a sloping ceiling, located towards the highest side of the room. The areas nearer the edge of the ceiling and the top of the walls are dead air space. Do not place your alarm here, as the lack of airflow may mean it will not be in time to warn you of a carbon monoxide escape. Never place a CO alarm in an enclosed space or where it can be obstructed. Above a sink or in a humid area. Next to a door, window, extractor fan or air vent. Near a cooking appliance. Or where temperatures drop below -10 degrees Celsius or above 40 degrees Celsius, unless your model is designed to do so. To recognise the signs and symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning and what to do if you suspect a carbon monoxide escape, please see our third carbon monoxide safety advice video. Our previous film covered where your carbon monoxide alarm can be fixed. However, no safety device is infallible. In the unlikely event that your alarm fails, or if you stay at a property without one, learn to recognise the early symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning to allow you to get out of the property. Many of these symptoms can easily be confused with flu, viral infections, or tiredness. If you suspect a carbon monoxide escape, close the appliance air controls, ventilate the area thoroughly, and leave the property immediately. Do not return until your appliance or boiler is extinguished and you have been told it is safe to do so. You must not use your appliance again until the cause of the spillage has been found and fixed. If you feel unwell, go to your doctor. Call NHS Direct on 111, or if urgent, phone 999 for an ambulance. Thank you for watching our 3 carbon monoxide safety film shorts. If your appliance installer filled in a HETAS commissioning sheet, then you can find more important consumer safety advice on carbon monoxide on the back of this sheet. HETAS also published the leaflet, Protect Yourself from Carbon Monoxide, which is available to view online at the following address: hetas.co.uk/consumer/HETAS-advice.
Okay, great. Very important safety message there. You know, when we get it right as end users, you know, burn the correct fuel, plenty of maintenance, sweeping, you know, then these occasions or occurrences of carbon monoxide are very few and far between. But that's a very important safety message, and I'd like to think that everybody on this call in this meeting does have a carbon monoxide detector within the same room as their appliance. And if you do need any further information or sort of just to refresh your memory on what you've just seen, then just log on to the HETAS website and have a look at our CO carbon monoxide information. So we'll move on now. So all solid fuel or biomass appliances should be routinely serviced by a competent engineer at the interval stated by the appliance manufacturer. HETAS recommends that routine service of the appliance is undertaken at least once a year. Cleaning, sweeping of the appliance may be required more frequently than the appliance routine service and maintenance in order to minimize the risk of chimney fire and to maintain safe operating conditions. So sweep at least twice a year if burning wood, or at least once a year if burning smokeless fuels. What you see here is a snapshot of the HETAS approved chimney sweeps and service and engineers search on the website there. And what we're all aspiring for is cleaner. So the correct maintenance, the correct installations, the correct burning of appropriate fuels, the correct appliances can all contribute to cleaner. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a look at the chat now and take any questions, answer any questions, and get some engagement from anybody else in the room that wants to unmute and have a chat about what you've seen so far, or give us some information as to what you've got. Okay, so feel free to unmute, but let's have a look at the chat.
Mike,
So
could I
what have
get
we
you
got
to
here?
could I get you to stop sharing so we can get a
Yes, of
better
course.
view of it all?
Yeah.
Thanks very
Yeah.
much.
No worries. Okay.
Should we go down the chat questions first, Mike?
Sorry, Serena.
Should we go down the chat questions first?
I think so. Yeah. So where were we? What have we got?
So we're going back to Yolande. Is there a reason why the film didn't explain the use of top and bottom vents in the wood burner?
Hi, Yolande. Is there a reason why the film didn't explain the use of the top and bottom vents in the wood burner? No, not that I'm aware of. It's the use of the vents, so the primary air on lighting, and then the adjustment of the vents that are there in line with manufacturing instructions. So I'll open up the floor to anybody that wants to. Yolande, have you got a wood burner that you use regularly?
Yeah, we do have. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we do have. We've got two wood burners. We've got a wet back and a small dry in the kitchen, but with the wet backs in the lounge. But we were taught how to burn our wood by the installer, and
Brilliant.
it really opened up our minds. By saying that you open up the top and bottom vent when you're starting, but leave the top vent open, but turn down with wood, you turn it right down, the bottom vent, and allow it. So it ends up burning twice. And so we get very little ash, which is fantastic. But
Excellent.
Of course, but it was a real revelation for us. So it burns without smoke. So it was just really sharing that, and
Yeah, absolutely. Has anybody else had any experience with installers sort of telling them how to burn use the stove appropriately? Jackie, good. And it's so encouraging that that those that are installing these products now are actually taking the time to explain how to use them and what fuel to put on them. When I first joined HETAS, and I was doing some CPD sessions and discussing things very similar to this, we've come a heck of a long way as an industry in how we're advising the end user now. When I can remember scenarios when I've been out to inspections and things like that, where the end user may have a fantastic installation but hasn't been shown how to use it properly, and doesn't know what fuel to burn on it. And so consequently there are things like you saw in the images there, smoke billowing out the chimney and and appliances that were, clogged up, tars and creosote adhering to the flues and the insides. And but I think as things have sort of moved on and people have become more aware, the information that is going out is supporting users a lot better. So.
Mike, I see we've got an associated question from Jeremy Thorpe, which is about having an external air supply. Actually, one of our devices has an external air supply, and
okay, yeah.
it's great. But how common are they?
Direct air supply. So yeah, direct external air supply, DEAS, as we term them internally. They are becoming increasingly common, and what we do advise though is that for our installers and the end user, if they are looking at, if you are looking at sourcing one of these and installing one, is to ensure or to determine just how much of the combustion air requirement is supplied by that direct air kit. So, always look for something that supplies at least 100% of the combustion air requirement. And they are becoming increasingly popular in passive houses, as people strive to meet sort of efficiency. But yeah, they are very good. It's just be conscious to ensure that they do meet 100% of that air supply requirement. Because inevitably, if you get one that doesn't meet 100% of that air supply combustion air requirement, you are still you could still require some permanent ventilation.
Because I think the point is, Mike, that the air that's being drawn by the fire has to be replaced by air coming in somewhere else. So if you've got a fairly leaky house, that's fine. You've got plenty of drafts.
Absolutely.
But in a sealed up house, then actually what you don't really want is a whole load of drafts, is it?
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's something that's really sort of been a challenge really for the industry and our installers and homeowners and people that are striving for that efficiency, and they are becoming increasingly popular. And so, the installers that have done the HETAS training are aware of, the nuances surrounding this, and they do install accordingly. They issue direct air commissioning sheets to ensure that the products of combustion are sort of terminating effectively when they're using that direct air kit. So there are a lot of manufacturers' instructions and things surrounding that.
Can I just come in here?
Yes, Jeremy.
Yes. And it's right because nowadays with the sort of the move to past 2035 and which has got a real focus on air tightness of buildings and having controllable ventilation rather than sort of uncontrolled ventilation, which is completely incompatible with having an open flue device. So I'm puzzled as to why the need for an external air shouldn't be becoming sort of mandatory for wood fuel devices. It seems that the suppliers sort of put it in as a sort of if a customer really asks for it, but it strikes me as it should be something that is becoming essential. Because for compatibility with the way we now expect houses to be heated and ventilated in the future.
Yes. So I mean, it hasn't been sort of mandated that you must have a direct air supply. The building regulations state that there should be sufficient combustion air for that appliance to operate effectively and safely, and this is where we find ourselves, isn't it, with sort of building regulations that need updating. We've got all the innovation that is out there with manufacturers' appliances and installation practice, and they should be meeting somewhere in the middle. And I agree, there should be something that looking forward accommodates this. People, there are some that say, well, we'll meet the combustion air requirement with mechanical ventilation, but that again has got its own set of sort of barriers. So it's one of those where the building regulations are kind of sort of where they are. Industry innovation is sort of is going up rapidly, and as sort of passive house and and all this, and you know, installers are becoming very conscious of it, and there are, you know, many within the industry that are, you know, progressively using direct air appliances to meet, you know, the past requirements. But for it to be mandated, that would be something that, you know, somebody with far more sort of impact and clout than me would be able to determine. But if we would be able to, there's a wish list with regards to the building regulations approved document J from an installation point of view and a technical point of view, that, you know, the guys internally, myself as a training manager and the technical guys, we've got a wish list of things we'd like approved document J to include on a rewrite. But as a you know, we've updated the installation standard BS 8303 to reflect some of it, but we can't mandate it to a degree. There are some technical notes that we put out in support of that. But yeah.
I'm going to suggest that a real techie conversation about standards could
be aside.
Offline.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, yeah.
No,
there's a hand up from Nick.
Yeah, Nick.
As well, Mike.
Nick. Yeah,
there is, and we've also got.
Hi, Mike. How are you doing? I just wanted to add a few comments here, if I could. And thanks for the presentation. It's very, very useful. Just the 38% that you mentioned. I'm sure people will have seen that across the press and the media, and I just wanted everybody to be aware of the Stove Industry Alliance, which I'm sort of quite involved with.
Excuse me, Nick, could you introduce yourself and say where you're from, please?
Yes, sorry. Yes, I was a little bit late arriving. So I'm Nick Snell from Certainly Wood. We do kiln dried logs in Herefordshire. One supply all over the country. So, and we've been very involved with HETAS from a very early stage, I suppose, with the Woodsure scheme, and now obviously the ready to burn scheme. So quite involved with that. But as I say, I also sit on the exec committee for the Stove Industry Alliance. So, and there's a lot of work being done in terms of the 38%, because that figure, I can be rest assured that is completely incorrect, that 38%, because it is a shocker. And of course, a lot of people are worried about emissions, thinking how dangerous wood burning stoves are. So a lot of work being done in the industry to prove that is wrong. And there's a very good video which I suggest people look on the Stove Industry Alliance website called Misconceptions video, and that just proves a lot of the points, but it's probably nearer 12%, because originally the figure they get from 38% comes from a survey done back in 2015 from just 1,200 people. And they worked out from that they felt that 6 million tonnes was how much firewood was burnt each year. It's actually probably nearer 1,800 tonnes. So when you take that extrapolation, it probably comes down to about 12% emissions. And the other thing Mike pointed out, which is a good point, is a lot of the emissions are coming from outdoor burning, fire pits, wood, pizza ovens, etc. So the figure's more likely to be 6%. I mean, DEFRA have agreed it's definitely not 38%, but it's yet to be changed in the media and the press. So that was the one point I wanted to make.
Just off the back of that, Nick, sorry, just off the back of that, and you know, I have got a video that I use as well, and it's, you know, you just go out in the car tomorrow in the daylight and look at the amount of fires you're going to see. And I've got one that was just down the road from me, and it was somebody had been into woodland and they'd copsed the wood, and they'd got all the toppings in a pile. That this pile of wood must have been, it must have been 20 meters at least, you know, round, and they set fire to it, and it smoldered for 3 days. 3 days of smoke going across the fields, you know, and all that is taken into that 38%. So, you know, the work that's being done across the industry by, you know, let's say the SIA and HETAS and Woodsure and, you know, Ready to Burn, and, you know, all these people that are pulling together to determine exactly what that figure is, you know, as little as 6%. That could be attributed to
Yeah, exactly. So the other point I wanted to make, just to expand slightly on the ready to burn, which perhaps you hadn't covered, and I just wanted to make clear, is that it's basically now part of the ready to burn scheme is that it's now illegal for anybody to sell a volume under 2 meter cubed. So you can't buy from any supplier, whether it's a garage, forecourt, wherever. It needs to be ready to burn. You can only buy volumes over 2 meter cubed, unseasoned, for you to season yourself. So that was another point I wanted to make. And the other one, which is perhaps answering some of the questions in the I know somebody said, how do you know if a stove is designed to burn efficiently? Again, I'd suggest having a look at the Ready to Burn website, but also the other thing that's happening with stoves now is that eco design is the sort of European standard, but what the stove industry are doing is now taking that a level further and becoming even more efficient stoves. And if you look at the Clear Skies website, that is a even tighter regulations that the industry is driving towards, which reduces particulate emissions even further. So when you start using decent stoves and dry wood, I think, wood burning should be seen as part of the solution rather than part of the problem, which a lot of the media portrays, as it were. So
absolutely. And it is that appropriate fuel and appropriate appliance. Be wary with the eco-design stuff. Look at DEFRA exemption. DEFRA exemption, I think, is probably one of the stricter controls. So look for a DEFRA exempt appliance in a smoke control area, and who knows, the whole of the country may be declared a smoke control area at some point. We don't know, but just be mindful that DEFRA exemption will cover the particulate side of things. So when you're looking for an appliance, just be sure that it's DEFRA exempt, eco design, and all those other things that are being sort of put out there to sort of support the industry and the use of wood. Hello, Jackie. Sorry.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you, and thanks for the
Nick.
contribution, Nick, from over the hill from me. We've got quite a lot of questions in the chat here. Lots of them are quite specific ones from people who want to kind of troubleshoot their actual usage. So we've got a question, for instance, I was thinking perhaps we could just cover off a few of those.
Yeah, I see there's one from Maggie there. I use dry logs, but so Maggie Setterfield. You're muted, Maggie, but I can see your question. I use dry logs, but glass gets mucked up quickly. What is the problem? That's a good one. So so you determine that you're using the correct fuel, so it's below 20%. Wonderful. Okay, that's good to see. Moisture meter there. The glass gets mucked up quickly, so it may be, and forgive me for saying this, are you using the air controls correctly? Following manufacturer's instructions with regards to how you're lighting it?
We have a difference of opinion in the house as to how it should be done. Maybe we need to go back to the instructions and have a definitive answer on that. Yes. Yeah,
I would just look at the instructions and then have that conversation. But yeah, if your wood is fine and you're keeping your appliance swept regularly and everything else, then there really shouldn't be a problem with your glass. So have another look at those instructions and follow them to the T. Can
I just say that I did have a sweep out to do my stove, and there was so little in there. He said, you really don't need to have this done, yet you're telling me that it needs doing every year.
Yeah, at least once a year. I mean, we say ideally twice a year when burning wood. So but that again is dependent on you. So if you're using it sort of 3 or 4, 5, 6 days a week, regularly, throughout the season, then obviously consequently you're gonna be producing more particulates, and it's going to need sweeping regularly. But if you're in that season only using it once on a weekend or something like that, then it may be that you can have it swept once a year. So that's yeah, that would be my advice there. It's dependent on use as well, a lot of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mike, let's deal what might seem to be the bleeding obvious, which is these controls. What are we trying to do? How much air are we trying to get in when? When do we want lots of air? When do we want less air? And how do you know, if you want those flames to dance around smoothly?
Yeah. Okay, so this will be largely on manufacturer's instructions. However, when you're lighting the appliance, so you'd have the primary air open, fully open when you're initially lighting the appliance. Some manufacturer's instructions will sort of say just to crack the door gently, or an installer would say just crack the door gently. So you've got more primary air going in. And then when you've got that fire established, then you can start closing the air controls down to get that flame picture that you're looking for. But again, it is follow the manufacturer's instructions. Okay, that's what I'd state there, because it's not one size fits all. Okay,
that's great. Let's look for some. Yeah.
So what have we got here?
There's a question about using briquettes versus dry logs. That's briquettes. From Lorraine Wormsley. Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Now, is there anybody that would like to try and answer that for me? Nick, do you want to come in on that? Because you've got a lot of experience with this.
Yeah, well, I'm about to say logs. But in all honesty, because I have tried both, so I will give an impartial view on it. I think heat logs or briquettes do have their place, but I think it's more for occasional burners, people that use just at weekends and things like that. You can obviously only buy them in small packs of 10 kilos or whatever. You can't obviously buy them loose in bulk. Therefore, they're probably, I would have said, they're going to cost you more money. The other issue with them is if you're buying them in bags, etc., you have them in a garage. If they get punctured and they get wet, they will expand and be a bit of a nightmare to manage. And of course, you then waste them. And I don't believe you get as good a flame as you will with natural firewood logs. So I think they have their place. I mean, they are a small part of the market. They might be 1% or so. I mean, you even got coffee logs and things now as well. So, but they're not, you can't buy them in loose in bulk like you can obviously firewood. So they have their place, but that would be my opinion on it.
Yeah. And I think to be perfectly honest, I share that opinion with you. It's I've had some and I have used them, and I've also experienced them expanding in the wet and becoming useless to some degree. So, I mean, when they are used and they're stored correctly and everything else, they're part of a puzzle that helps us meet, what we're all aspiring to. But if I were to be asked which I prefer personally, it would be wood logs. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Nick. We've got one from Wendy here. Surely if there is to be legislation for wood burners, would it not be a good idea to legislate to prevent bonfires, and as they put masses of particulates into the air? And this is something that, I go back to that slide on and the 38%, and it does drive me, it really does drive me to distraction. We can do all of this, and then you can, as I say, drive down the road or look out your window, and the local farmer or somebody has got a massive bonfire burning that's undoing all the good work that you're doing with your appropriate fuel and your stove maintenance and all the the great stuff the industry has come up with. And that is to some degree covered under the Environmental Protection Act. EPA Act should cover that to some degree, but and pardon, respectfully to any farmers that may be on the call, try telling a farmer that he can't sort of, burn that, those tree toppings, or tell them to stop burning and put that fire out. You come unstuck very quickly. So yeah, I'd love to see it, yeah, legislated to a better degree, which would help support, the whole industry. But watch the space on that one, I think. We've got one from John Cook. How do you know if a stove is designed to burn efficiently? Well, what we'll be looking at is, that at your actual stove there, that the appliance you should be able to purchase, the only appliances you'll be able to purchase as of sort of 2022 should meet those requirements. There are still appliances that will be there on the market that may not be as efficient as the new ones. But if you think back to the previous slide, one of the earlier slides on, an older appliance, but the differences between an older appliance or an appliance that is actually using appropriate fuel, they become so much more efficient just by using an appropriate fuel and getting them serviced and maintained. So even your old appliance, using the correct fuel, the correct maintenance regime, sweeping and everything, will help reduce it and become more efficient. And then you go on to a more modern appliance that is designed to be more efficient anyway. And then, you've got your innovation that's out there to support that. So, yeah, it's how do you know if a stove is designed to burn more efficiently? That will ultimately be in the manufacturer's instructions, but it's all to do, a lot of it to do with the fuel and the maintenance as well. Okay. Dave, is there a general rule how long to typically season a log if it's stored dry and well ventilated? Well, you're looking to sort of 1 to 2 years there. You can get kiln dried fuel, or if you aren't, if you are in the position where you can season your own fuel, that's great. The easiest thing to do is get some from a reputable ready to burn retailer or stockist. But if you are in a position where you can sort of locally source your fuel, then do so, and season it for 1 to 2 years and ensure that you're doing it in an appropriate log store, well ventilated, etc.
Mike, can I just add a couple of ones to that, actually, because
yes,
I wouldn't entirely agree with it. I think if it's something like ash or something like that, I would be inclined to agree. But I think if you oak or apple or beech, denser woods, you would need probably 3 to 4 years. And the other key thing is, if you're doing your own wood, is make sure it's split. You need to split the log first, increase the surface area, then store it under cover. And you're talking 1 or 2 years for ash. You could be 3 or 4 years for oak, but that's pretty crucial from the point of view of air drying it. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Nick. And again, ultimately test it with your moisture meter as well, to ensure that it is ready to burn.
I see, Mike, we've got a little conversation going on about in the chat about how burning wood fits in at a time of climate crisis, and whether other heating forms, ultimately heat pumps, might be better, or whether they combine well together. And I wonder how that, what your thoughts are on that, probably what Nick's thoughts are on that, especially as I think, you actively source and grow wood for burning. And I'm also interested in the angle of kiln dried wood, the implications of using energy to dry the wood to burn.
Okay. Well, I'll answer some of that question, and Nick, you can probably come in on the kiln drying stuff and some of the stuff as well. But with regards to where are we, wood being used as heat, the CO2 and everything that's produced off the back of that. I mean, the obvious one for me, the obvious buy-in for it is if we look at fossil fuels and how long they take to be processed and formed, and you look at how many millions of years it takes to create coal and and gas and oil and things like that. The cycle for trees and growing copse and woodland that's managed, opening up the fauna, etc., etc. And the CO2 balance there, I think, you know, that the maths is irrefutable. It's you know, a lot sort of a lot better for the environment than digging out fossil fuels and drilling for oil and things like that. So that's from a you know, a wood fuel that gets my vote up every time. It can be used with alongside other heat sources, so air source heat pumps or ground source or water source heat pumps, and that technology, it's all low temperature hot water heating. So what you've got there is you haven't got an immediate surge of heat. So if on really cold days you come in and want a bit more heat to that room, the wood burner is the ideal choice, and it sits very well. It complements that sort of primary heating very well indeed, and gives that aesthetic look as well. But yeah, from a renewable heat source, sustainable heat source, I think wood all the way, and it sits alongside the technologies that are now coming to the fore. So, you know, solar thermal and things like that. But predominantly, what we hear a lot is that our installers are installing wood burners in new builds that have used underfloor heating and low water temperature heating systems, specifically for that reason, where the homeowner actually wants that immediate surge of heat. So yeah, Nick, you
just I'd add, yeah, I think that the industry is really keen that combination is a really good combination, stoves and heat pumps. But I think the challenge the industry has is that because of all the negative press over the last 3 years with particulate emissions, etc., you know, and still articles appearing from God knows where around Europe as well, saying how bad it is. You know, you've got Mums for Lungs as a campaign going on in London to ban wood burning stoves, etc. So the challenge we've got as an industry is to turn it round so that it is seen as part of the solution, and the fact that if you want to get rid of fossil fuels, then wood burning is great, but just use the right appliance and the right fuels. So it's a challenge, but I think, you know, everybody's support, we can get that round, because of course the papers don't want to print something like that. They'd much prefer to print a bloody awful story. On the other one, Jackie, your point about kiln drying, I mean, we and I think a lot of other people use wood chip and our own waste wood to run the kilns, and we've got solar panels as well. So I think it's pretty eco-friendly from the point of view of actually drying the wood. So answer those questions.
Great, thank you. That's really useful to hear, and I'm sure I was asking that question on behalf of a lot of others too.
It's a fair point. I mean, to be fair, when we started 16 years ago, we did have an oil-fired kiln, but oil was at 12p a litre then. So, you know, things have moved. So, but, you know, it's far more eco-friendly to do it with wood chip and waste. So.
Sure. And by the way, a few months ago, we did have a session on heat pumps called Thinking of Switching to a Heat Pump. And one of the recommendations there was that, by and large, you know, first of all, insulate your home. That's ideal. Get a heat pump installed that is as small as possible so that it's as efficient as possible. And supplement was the recommendation from our main speaker, supplement with a wood burner for those really challenging days when we've got a cold spike, or indeed, you know, this really high carbon electricity for a short period.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I say, we are seeing that more and more now, where our installers are being asked to, you know, install wood burners in new housing, you know, that is designed to be efficient, and the air permeability is, you know, a lot better than a lot of the older housing stock. That in itself brings its own challenges, which is where Jeremy came in with his, you know, with the comments about direct air and this, that, and the others. So the whole industry is sort of moving together as a whole house solution to try and meet the aspirations of the climate change and, you know, strategy. And it's something that we are seeing it is happening. But yeah, it's dragging the regulations along with the innovation. That's what we've got to do.
Mike, we've got about 5 minutes left. Quite a few people have sent notes saying they've had to go off to other things,
Okay.
which is fair enough.
Yeah.
I wonder whether it's time to invite people to, unmute and just put out their hand if there's something they want
Absolutely,
to ask or say. Yeah. The numbers are a bit more manageable now. So what should we call it?
Yeah, let's have a free-for-all. Anybody unmute and say. Tumbleweed, brilliant. So okay, who's got a wood burner in the room? Excellent. Okay, so have you found this of any use? Great. Okay.
John's got his hands up. John Cook.
John Cook.
Yeah, okay, very useful, thank you. I've just been looking at Clearview's list of stoves to see whether the one that we've got is DEFRA approved, and I can't find it.
Okay, right. Yeah, I mean, you're okay to use that appliance. Nobody's going to come around to you in 2022 and say you're not allowed to use that appliance anymore. It's not DEFRA approved. It's not DEFRA exempt. Are you in a smoke control area?
No.
Right. So, if you're using the fuel that you should be, you're burning correctly, then there's nobody's going to come and knock on your door and say, "Excuse me, we're going to fine you, John, because you shouldn't be using that."
What is interesting is that it looks as though there's only one stove on that particular manufacturer's range that at the moment appears to be DEFRA approved.
Okay.
Which was disappointing.
Right. I mean, have you had any issues with that appliance? Does it give you any issues at all? Are you happy in its use?
No issues at all. Always use very dry wood, 20% or less.
Yeah.
And we had the chimney swept earlier this year, and we barely got a cupful of soot out of the chimney after 3 years.
Brilliant. And that's, that's where we want to be as an industry, and that's what everybody should be striving to, where we should be. Not seeing the video of the smoke that I put up, coming out of that chimney where somebody is possibly using, old window frames or creosoted vent posts. Just before we go, I'll just give you a scenario. I went out, when I first joined HETAS, I went out to inspect an installation. It was an elderly lady that had called in, complaining that her chimney sweep couldn't get the brushes in the chimney, and she'd never had a problem with her old stove. So I went out there, and it was a fantastic installation. And I said, "Oh, can I have a look at your wood store?" And I went outside to a wood store, and it was full of old fence posts, old painted wood, old remnants of pallets, bits of wood that had been picked up, and on a walks and this, that, and the other. And we got talking. I said, "So what was your old appliance?" She said, "Oh, I had a great big stove, and it was on an unlined chimney, and this and that. It never gave me any problems." And what it was, you've been using that stove for years as an incinerator and just burning everything, and all those particulates were going into the air. It was burning it, and there was smoke coming out of the chimney. But when she'd had this new installation in, which was a lovely 5 kilowatt appliance with a lined chimney and everything, if she'd used the appropriate fuel, it would have been great, but she wasn't. And that was partly down to the installer that put it in. We're talking a fair few years ago now, that maybe didn't give her the correct advice on the fuel that she should have been using, or may have, and it may have just gone. I don't know. But yeah, so that appliance came out, and I think the old one went back in, sadly. But yeah, so it's, burn the correct fuel on the right appliance, and we should all be sort of still burning wood in the next 15, 20 years without a problem. Okay, so I mean, we're a minute over, but if there's anything else that anybody wants to send us or talk about, or anything that you want clarification on off the back of this, please feel free to email us here at HETAS, or pass your questions on to Jackie, and we can get something sent over to you. But it's been a pleasure to have everybody in the room, and the interaction. And yeah, if there's nothing else, then I'll say thanks very much and bid you all good night.
Yeah, and I'll just follow up. Thank you very much indeed, Mike. Thank you everyone for contributing. And yes, we will be sending out a follow-up email. In due course, there'll be a link to the recording, but we'll also send links to the HETAS and Woodsure websites. And can we give your contact details, Mike, as well?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Please do. You know, it's all about sort of education, and yeah, there is a raft of information on the website, both the HETAS and the Woodsure websites. So yeah, please do. And if if you've got any questions that you want answering that we haven't answered in full, whether it's technical or or whatever, just feel free to email me. That's not a problem at all.
Great, good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you as well, Nick, for your contributions in answering. And yeah, thanks everyone for coming.
Great.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night all.